everybody, it's Lynn from A Bit of Birdsong. I am out in the workshop and I'm going to try to stay in view while I talk to you. I have a lot that I'm putting away. I just bought some new fabric. I've done a lot of organizing out here and I can't function out here unless things are somewhat neat. Now there's a lot out here. You can look around and see that. I've done some moving around a little bit. This shelf was not over here, but I have a lot of big like this. And they were kind of all over the place. And over here, they didn't really fit in this corner. They would sit in front of my counter, but I need the counter for my paper cutter and for my cutting mat. So I moved some things around and the big bins are over by the door now. This has room to slide in here. The cabinet that was there had to move. So I want to talk to you while I'm going through this stuff. I hope you will excuse me for being busy while we chat. I do want to show you something really beautiful that I got in the mail today. My friend La Sharon sent me this gorgeous package. And I think she made this little envelope with the flower on it, and it's just, I don't know how she did that. I think maybe it's like decoupage with some napkins or something. It's beautiful. I love this so much. And I'm going to put it over on my desk where I can look at it. Actually, I had the perfect place. I have a little stand up over my desk on a high shelf, and it's really pretty up there. So let me tell you about my job. I worked in healthcare for about 30 years. I'll be 58 my next birthday, and I studied to be a respiratory therapist years ago. Then when I got into the clinical work, I didn't like it. I just didn't care for it. Look at this. Ooh, really pretty. This is an old, like satiny fabric. Look at the color change where some tape has been on it. So, what was I saying? Anyway, I won't go all through the past history, but I ended up not doing respiratory therapy because the clinicals just were not for me. And I was very grateful to have the background though, because it gave me medical terminology, and that allowed me to be able to get decent jobs working from home, which allowed me to be home with my children. This is pretty too. So I was in healthcare for a long time, and the very last job that I had was in a hospital, and it was clerical. And I had really reached pretty much the top of my game. I mean, I was at the top of the pay scale and had been doing it for a long time. You know, what I was doing, the editing, the training, the quality assurance. I was helping other people do what I used to do. But because of a change in health information management and changes in record keeping, my job went away. It was just absorbed. I didn't do anything wrong. There was just a change in the way things were documented, and it actually put more responsibility onto the doctors. Look at this. That's beautiful. So, they wanted me, well, they invited me to stay, which meant instead of being able to work at home like I had done for a long time, I had to go into the hospital, and well, most of those 10 years I was at home, and then I transitioned into the hospital at the very end to try to fit into something new. And I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to take my retirement and just cut my losses. I had hoped to get 10 more years with that hospital, but I just was not, I didn't want to drive 2 hours a day. So I was suddenly unemployed with a little bit of retirement, and I went to work for the scrap exchange. A lot of you know I've talked about that. That's a place that I have shopped for 30 years. If you look up the scrap exchange online, it's a large reuse center. It is absolutely amazing. I will always love it. But I got a job there, and I went in to pretty much straighten up the paper and office section there. And I think I did a pretty good job at that. At least I was told I did, and I enjoyed it very, very much. That's my favorite job that I've ever had. So why did I leave, you might ask? Well, I don't want to say too much about any one person or any one thing, but it evolved. The management situation, I hear squirrels outside. It evolved into a really toxic environment. Now, I'm not just saying this by myself. There was also an article published, if you care to do a little bit of digging, you might find it, in a local independent newspaper where 25 former and current employees went public with complaints that had not been taken seriously by management or the board of directors. That's all I'm going to say about that. What I will say about myself personally was that I hear recycle outside. That's my neighbor. What I will say about my own situation is that I had reached a point where I was developing physical injuries with my feet. They are called overuse or overwork injuries. I went to the doctor. Of course, that, was an added expense that I should not have had to pay. I was doing the work of more than one person, at least two people, actually probably two and a half, because what I was doing had been covered by two of us before the pandemic. And then the pandemic set up a situation where not everybody was called back, but there was still as much work to do. And these complaints were taken to management. Anyway, I left there. Now, I still need to work. So, do I regret leaving the scrap exchange? I regret the loss of my work family because it was really, really family. Like it felt like a family. Now, unfortunately, the situation that was evolving with this toxic environment, that was chipping away at that every day. It was affecting morale. It was affecting, I was not the only one having problems. So, physical problems. So, but I don't regret leaving the environment. When I talked about, in the past, I love working really hard and coming home exhausted from giving everything to something, I meant that. And that kind of work, if you've ever worked in retail, you already know you're being on your feet. It's physically challenging, even in moderate circumstances. If you've ever worked in a thrift environment with donations and processing, you know that can be really fast-paced, hectic, dirty work. And I loved it. I was in charge of paper and office and ephemera and all of that good stuff. I wasn't in charge of books. That was in the other store, but I did get an overflow of old books. So I loved all of that. Under normal circumstances, yes. Every time I said that, it was totally true. However, when it ramped up to me coming home from work, hardly able to walk, I don't like that. We have one body. I have one set of lungs. When you're processing donations, you're taking in fibers, paper. Sometimes things are donated and they really shouldn't be. Maybe they've been in a moldy garage or something like that. I'm going to keep picking up fabric. Love this. This needs to go. I'm going to put this on my desk because I already know what I'm going to do with it. Yeah. Where are we? All of this. Look at this beautiful floral fabric. That goes in there. So I don't regret leaving. I'm grieving the loss of my scrap family and having a job that was the best job, well, as far as happiness, the best job I've ever had. Now, income-wise, it was at the bottom of what I've done over the last 30 years. But that didn't matter to me. So I left and I started applying for jobs, both in retail and in sort of medical support, different type things, hospital jobs. I even applied for transcription at home again, which I was offered an interview, but I knew I didn't want to do that. I mean, it still crosses my mind sometimes, but if you've ever sat for 8 hours a day typing with a headset and listening to all different accents, you know, busy background noises, just a plethora of terms, and I mean, I'm good at it, but I didn't want to do that again. That is taxing in a different way. But I got a call back. I had applied at a large pharmacy chain for pharmacy tech, and it was a job where they would train you. Here, let me get this other fabric out of the way, and I might just sit down for a minute. Oh, hopefully this is okay, and hopefully you can see me. I can't believe I even have room to move around back here. There's so much stuff in here. So, I got a call about the pharmacy tech job, and I decided to take it. It sounded really awesome that I could do like an apprenticeship or being a training program and get certified as a pharmacy tech, which opens doors to move on. And that's something that I wasn't even necessarily looking for. I want to work, or my goal was to work 10 more years, which is, you know, that would put me at 67, and a lot of people don't want to work that long. I was hoping to build up more retirement and just stay busy, you know, stay active, keep my mind active. And my children are all grown. They're all very independent, but I do like being able to help my youngest. She has a new baby. She is young, and you know, I'll get to the rest of this part in just a little bit, but I don't feel like my children had the step up that some kids have when they come from one home where the parents stay together. So I took this job as a pharmacy tech apprentice, and I'm like, I don't want this to sound like I'm bragging. I'm not. I have a background in healthcare, and I do, I like to learn. So I felt like I was learning really quickly, but it was very stressful. The bottom line is that it was understaffed, and I was supposed to have shadowed someone to learn, like to watch somebody do all of the things I was doing. Now, the people were extremely nice. The customers, and I have a heart towards people who are suffering. A lot of customers, they didn't feel well, or, you know, they were elderly. Most of those people were really, really nice. There was one day that we had two very healthy looking, strapping, middle-aged men who almost got in a fist fight over who was next in line. And I'm not exaggerating. The pharmacist had to break it up, and they said that they would see each other outside, these two gentlemen. And then another day, a very healthy looking, middle-aged woman, she just really drove me in the ground verbally. It's like she could tell I was new, and she was just going to make a joke out of that. So she just kept saying really loudly that I didn't know what I was doing. And actually, I had told her all the right things. And one of the other techs came down from, you know, the filling where they fill the prescriptions and totally took my side. She totally had my back and assured the woman that I was telling her the right thing. So it was like that woman just wanted to embarrass somebody. She seemed like the type that would feel better if she was making other people feel bad. Anyway, and Brandy, if you're listening to this, so I had only been in the pharmacy actually learning to fill prescriptions, learning to do paperwork for different shots, working the counter, working the drive-through, rotating through the whole pharmacy. I had only been doing that for 2 weeks when I was put on the schedule to be by myself with just the pharmacist. And you know, I found out later that they were short-staffed, and that ideally that shouldn't have happened, and they didn't really want that to happen. That wasn't the plan. But because I was learning quickly, and because I was doing a good job, and they felt that I was capable of that, so maybe I should have said, great, that's great. However, I was internalizing a tremendous amount of stress. When you're in front of somebody who has expectations for you to know something, and it's not easy. It's not like, oh, would you hand me this red pack versus this yellow pack? No, it was, my insurance is not working. And why is this ringing up at $300 instead of $50? I always pay $50. And then for everything you're looking for, there's 10 different check boxes, like a Medicare Part A, Part B, Part D, or a coupon code that they've used in the past from GoodRx. And then there's paperwork with things, with shots, things that have to be filled out, things that have to be filed. There are phone calls to make. The phone's ringing, and people are at the drive-thru while you're also at the counter. So for me, I was internalizing a lot of stress. And after about a week of beginning to work alone like this, I started to feel so sick. The last 2 days that I was supposed to have worked, I couldn't go in. It had set me up to have a physical reaction to a job, and I've never had that happen in my whole life. I think I'm very sturdy. I was in an abusive marriage for 23 years, and I feel like I can handle stress, and that, the abusive marriage, that's a whole different story. It was not physical abuse. Got real close to the line a couple of times, and that's one of the reasons that I finally got myself out of it. But here I am, and I'm just going to do my art for a while. I'm going to be quiet and see what comes my way. I still have some applications out there. I don't want that kind of stress. I don't. And, going into something and right off the bat, feeling like you're being taken advantage of, maybe because you get things fast, just because I was picking up on things fast, that should not negate the benefit of a true apprenticeship for me. Instead of having to have the level of stress go up to a 10, with me frantically looking at the screen and trying to figure things out on my own and bother other people to ask questions, I should have had the benefit, which I was supposed to have been afforded, of watching somebody do it first for days, and try it with somebody standing there with me, not floundering inwardly. And I did do a good job, but that's not for me. I'm not going to go into a situation where that seems to be the company mentality. I was so impressed at the outset with the company's philosophies and their statements on paper. But then the way I was handled once I got into the situation, it is just not for me. So, maybe some of this ties into spending years with somebody who did not appreciate me and who didn't take care of me. My Jason is just the world to me, and he takes care of me. He is honest. He is kind. He is my protector. He's the first one to take my part if something happens. He's a perfect companion and friend and partner. But prior to that, I spent years, and largely because of religion, with someone who walked all over me verbally, and looking back, anything that I wanted, there was always a reason that it couldn't work out. Even little things for my house that could have been easily accomplished. We'll do it next week. We'll do it next month. Or you'll have those things when you have grandkids. I lived for a long time in a very, very emotionally dark place. And there's this saying that givers need to set boundaries because takers don't have any. That job that I was getting into was going to be a taker. I could already see that. In fact, this weekend coming up, they had put me on the schedule to work the whole entire weekend by myself with just the pharmacist. I didn't feel ready for that at all. And in my mind, I was not going to only be stressed out beyond belief, I was going to be letting down the other techs who were looking forward to having the weekend off. It's not my fault that the other tech who was supposed to be in the rotation just up and quit. It wasn't my fault that, they didn't have a system to bring in somebody from another store. None of that is my fault. And it would be different if I had been there 6 months and I was truly trained and I just decided I'm not going to work the weekends. No, I went into it knowing that I would rotate weekends. I was looking forward to that. I've been working every weekend for the last 2 years. So that's not a problem for me. Working every third weekend sounded awesome, but that's not what this was. Anyway, I want everybody to know what happened. I miss the scrap exchange like crazy, but I don't miss these last few months of coming home feeling the emotional weight of bad management. Now, I may go back and volunteer there. I love that place. I love the mission. Every town, every city should have a scrap exchange. Every city should have a reuse center that keeps things out of the landfills. I miss my scrap family like crazy, like crazy. That environment was so awesome. But I've set a goal for myself to go in there once a week to shop. I get a lot of my journal supplies there. So I'm okay with it. I'm big enough, I'm old enough, I'm a big girl, I've been through a lot. I can separate what is grieving over loss from knowing I had to make a decision for my health. So I had to tease apart those things. And while I really, really feel terrible about letting people down, I am so happy that I walked away from that very stressful pharmacy job just weeks into it versus 6 or 7 months. So I'm just going to do my art for right now. And my channel is growing. I have so many things I want to share, so much content I want to put on this channel. You all know how much I've worked, and like so many times I would say, I have this to do, I want to share this, but I'm off to work, or I really wanted to get this done today, but I was at work all day. So I'm just really excited. I'm going to do this, and we shall see how it goes. That's not to say I won't get another job. I am looking, but I will be more careful about what I say yes to. Maybe do a little more research before I say yes to something. I did do some research about this job. I read good and bad. I think there was probably more bad out there, but I didn't want to go into it with anybody else's opinion. I wanted to go into it with mine. And that is another thing that it took me a long time to pay attention to my own voice. When you're with somebody who takes, or who's abusive, or who is a narcissist, you can get into a cycle of blaming yourself and quieting your own voice because it stirs up the monsters and the demons that come from other people, or it reminds you of something you don't have, or it presents a question to you like, are you really doing what you want to do? And that's a really scary question to answer when it means making a huge change. And walking away from this job a few weeks in and just telling them, this is too much, and I don't think it has been appropriate or ethical or fair that was a huge move, and it took strength to do that, strength that I probably would not have had a long time ago. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to get busy cleaning up some more. I have some things I want to do. Another journal I'm working on, and kits and sets and fun packs, and just so much to put in the shop. So I'll be back really soon. I hope everyone's having a good day, the best that you can. Those of you who aren't, I'm thinking about so many of you, and you know what my friends are going through, different ones. So I just love all of you for being here, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.